Stop. Hammertime.
Years ago, I helped out a cheap retail store with their security. In downtime, I would help on stock, but it was also my job to make sure kids weren't messing with the party supplies, people weren't shoplifting, etc. Part of my job at close was to check all the shelves and under them in case boxes were misplaced or stock went missing. Customers would hoard a basket of things to look like they were shopping, then ditch the basket under the shelf and leave with a single object, so it was necessary. I was visiting family for a few days and received a text from my manager asking when I was coming back. I thought it was weird, but I thought nothing of it as I'd be back the next day. When I arrived back at work, they showed me the security tapes. A customer with a bag containing nothing but a sledgehammer walked into the store and slid himself under the shelf a few hours before close, and then just waited perfectly still for close. The staff member taking over my close duties did not do a shelf check that day. If I had not decided to take those few days off, and it was a struggle to decide as I was on minimum wage and needed the money, I would have found myself face to face with a creeper and a sledgehammer. He lay in wait, surprisingly, but thankfully, as the manager stood at the till counting all the cash openly at the counter. The store was locked at the front by now. He continued to just lie there. The employees all left the store from the back warehouse entrance, and that's when the guy came out. He bust down the office door where the safe was kept, and then he tried to use his sledgehammer to literally knock the safe off the bolts in the floor. By this time, the security alarms had been set off from him breaking the door, and my boss was coming back to the office through the back because he forgot something when they all locked up that day. He came face to face with the man who chased him back outside. My boss hid in some dumpsters, and the man ran into the car park and into the distance with his sledgehammer in tow. After his entire 3 or so hour stakeout and operation, he left with nothing except, I'm assuming, sore arms. If you're reading this, thank you for choosing a day I wasn't working. Let's keep it that way. Sledgehammer man, wherever you are, let's not meet.
Creepy cab driver.
This is nowhere near as bad as the majority of the stories I've read on here. But anyway, when this happened, I was 19 in London. My then boyfriend had called me a cab to go home from his place, which is about a 30-minute drive. His car was in the shop at the time. Before I got in the cab, he kissed me and told me to text him when I got home, in earshot of the driver. I get in and the man starts a friendly conversation about what I'm studying. Nothing unusual, but the conversation starts to get a bit personal when he tells me he's from Pakistan and a Muslim. He then asks me if I am too. I'm Iranian and my family is Muslim, but I don't practice. But I just said yes to not cause any awkwardness. He started to tell me I look like a good Muslim girl and that he wanted to marry someone like me. I became increasingly uncomfortable and noticed he deliberately turned onto a street that would make the ride 15 minutes longer than the usual route. I text my boyfriend saying the taxi driver is creepy, and he replies telling me to keep texting him until I get home, so he knows that I'm okay. The cab driver asks if the guy that said goodbye to me was my boyfriend, and I immediately said yes, hoping that would shut him up. He asks if we're serious, and I said yes, and he continues saying he wants someone exactly like me. He then locks the car doors. I ask him why he did that, and he says for safety. I swear my mouth was so dry I could hardly swallow. I was pretty scared, but I didn't say anything because he was still going towards my house, and I didn't want to make him angry. He asked me the most disgusting questions. If I was still a virgin, if I'd ever done stuff with a man. I refused to answer and kept frantically texting my boyfriend, but the douche had earlier left his phone somewhere or fallen asleep. So much for being worried for my safety. When we finally get there, he overcharged me, told me he had my number and that he was going to call me so we could meet. I said I won't because I'm in a relationship and my family wouldn't like that. He said I can keep it a secret. I tried to open the door to get out, but it was still locked and he laughed. He then stared at me intensely through the rearview mirror for what felt like a full minute. My stomach felt hollow and the street was quiet and dark, which made it feel even more creepy. He finally unlocked the door and I booked it to my front door and frantically knocked as I looked for my key. My mom asked why I looked so pale and I told her. She proceeded to call the cab company to make a complaint and they admitted he'd done this before and promised they would fire him, and we reported it to the police. But they didn't pursue it since he hadn't harmed me. Mr. Cab Driver, I hope we never meet again. And no, I won't marry you.
Not my night.
Just found this and have spent my morning reading all the crazy stories. I thought I'd put mine in there too. I'm a female in my late 20s, short and small. I happened to be downtown one evening with my mom and sister. There was a little art festival and I was dressed up in a costume that made me look about 12 years old. Think pastel colors, bows, a fluffy dress. My family and I stayed in downtown until almost 10 p.m. and then we separated and I start my way home by myself when I realize the gas light is on. So luckily I still had one more gas station before the 30-minute drive through country roads to get to my house. The gas station is closed, but their card reader is working, so I start filling up. I park right where there is the most light because nobody else is around, except an 18-wheeler parked at the edge of the parking lot, and I notice an SUV pull up. They park just out of the light, but not far from my car. The driver's window's down and I can hear their voices. They start talking about something and I hear the word girl and can see the driver's arm gesture towards me. At this point I am wishing I had on different clothes. I am trying to get finished. I'm thinking maybe they want to get gas, but are just waiting on me to leave. So I quickly put up the gas pump and get into my car as fast as possible. This SUV starts following me as soon as I move my car. They don't get gas or pretend to be doing something. As soon as my vehicle moves, theirs is moving also. It starts out real close to me and then every once in a while, it will slow down and get far back, and then it will rev up and get real close to me again. It does this for almost the entire 30-minute drive, and at this point I am so freaked out that I tell myself that if they follow me all the way to my neighborhood area, I'm just going to bypass my house and drive to the police station. They followed me up until I got onto a road similar to the interstate, mostly a straight shot with no houses or anything, and they would have no clue how far I'd have to drive before I pull over, so they can do whatever to me. As I turned onto the on-ramp, the vehicle slowed to almost a crawl and watched me get onto the road. I was afraid they were going to turn around and follow me more, and I was only about 5 minutes from home. A few weeks later, I found out that some people were caught human trafficking over there in the area that I got gas. I don't know what you wanted, dudes, but please, let's not meet.